Welcome everyone, welcome to Market Intel, the show that brings you what's actually happening in the SME market from people working with clients in the front row. Today we have Sam Frost, who is a digital marketing consultant here in Christchurch and works with small to medium enterprise clients here in Canterbury and nationwide, but predominantly Canterbury I'd say.
That's correct, yep.
And so it helps them with their digital marketing. So what this is just a casual chat, talking about the opportunities and the challenges in the market and what your piece of advice is for your industry knowledge. So digital marketing, we've just spent the last 10 minutes talking about Facebook and Vivo and MySpace, and you know, he was talking about, what's that thing you're on, the swiping app?
Nothing. Not Kilter.
So, yeah. Not Kilter, which is, yeah. So give us a brief overview, what is the demographic for digital marketing nowadays? What should business owners be looking at, and what is it for those that have been living under a rock for the last 10 years?
I mean, at its most fundamental level, it's about promoting your business online. Obviously, traditional marketing methods we would refer to these days, you'd be print advertising, radio, TV, backs of buses, all those kinds of things. They're still out there in the marketplace. But there has been an undeniable shift in popularity and sort of demand to digital platforms. I think there's a misconception often that digital marketing to many small, medium business owners pretty much seems to refer to social media, so it's Facebook or LinkedIn, but it actually goes well beyond that as well. There's a whole sort of ecosystem of different ways you can promote your business. There's Google's advertising platform, so Google Ads, which is actually one of the pretty early sort of players in the space. It's a big source of their revenue. There's platforms like YouTube, which is owned by Google. They've got a great advertising platform, but there's also bits of digital marketing that go beyond just paying for ads. There's the whole concept of search engine optimization, so SEO. That's about getting your website appearing, in Google organically. So in the areas where you're not paying for people to click. There's also what you're doing with your website. So that's really actually for many businesses where the whole sort of conversation should begin. What persona, what presence are you putting out into the marketplace with your website? It always fascinates me how many business owners I'll come across who they'll be really interested in social media, or they want to start with Facebook advertising, or they want to do Google Ads, and you go have a look at the site that they're running for their business and it's completely out of date. It doesn't really represent their company or what value they bring to the market very well. And it's kind of like, I guess, what's that saying? Get your own house in order before you sort of go out and explore further afield. And so that's something that has to be considered as well. So it's not just one thing, it's not just Facebook, it's a whole ecosystem that business owners need to sort of consider and contend with.
Because it's getting a lot more complex, especially with Facebook knows a lot about me. Everything you sign up to now usually gives you the option to sign in via Facebook. And it's getting to the stage where I'll be reading an article on stuff.co.nz and up on the banners will be a real estate agent that I know from Christchurch. And it's like, how has he ended up there? How does that work?
Yeah, so what you just described there is actually a really interesting concept and something a lot of business owners want to know how to do. So what you're talking about is remarketing or retargeting. So you've probably, we'll use a common example. Let's say you were to go on the Air New Zealand website and look at flights to San Francisco. I mean, maybe in the current climate, you might not be so inclined to do so, but let's just say you were going to do that. You leave the site, and then you start seeing ads popping up for discounted flights to San Francisco or other locations you might like. You've probably seen that happen to you guys before. Yeah, so that's remarketing, and really what that's all about is as you hit a website, it could be your website or any website, you're basically being cookied, piece of data is going onto your browser saying, hey, this person visited this site at this time, and then you can actually use advertising platforms like Facebook or Google's ad platform, or even LinkedIn now supports this as well, and other third-party advertising platforms to follow that up. And so the whole purpose there is to really chase people in that consideration phase, because not everyone buys a product or a service straight away. And depending on how your business is structured, how your business operates, there could be quite a time gap between your initial visit on a site or a customer's initial visit and when they might actually make an inquiry or make a purchase.
Mm-hmm. And so what's the challenge? I mean, there's you're talking about a lot of platforms there, and like, for example, this is your day job, so you live it and breathe it every day. I dabble in it, shall we say, but I am nowhere near an expert. And like you're talking about how you got on stuff and YouTube ads and Google ads, and what's the challenge? What's the main challenge for a business owner that wants to get into digital marketing?
I think the main challenge is overwhelming information. and sort of following it up, the actual technical implementation of it. There's so many different things you could do, and digital especially is very prone to that whole sort of shiny object syndrome. So to use an example at the moment, TikTok, there's that app that as far as I'm aware is mainly for sort of younger audiences. Now a lot of business owners, I've seen sort of saying, hey, how can I leverage TikTok? But they haven't even done, say, Facebook well. They haven't even done Google well. But it's avoiding that information overload, it's avoiding that shiny object syndrome. And I think it's really mapping out what platforms actually make really good sense to be on and learning those. Let's be realistic, you can't do everything. You can't do it all at once. You've got to be realistic in how you're actually resourcing, especially if you're going to do some of this yourself or you've got a small team. So if you're a small to medium business owner and you're thinking, how do I actually get started in this? I think the first step is to really sit down and say, what platforms make sense for me to be on? So for example, if you've got a product or a service that someone's going to be searching for at a given point in time, I'll use an example of, say, a house moving company, right? You move people's houses. Something like Google Ads and doing SEO well, so you show up for people who are searching for Christchurch relocation company, that would be a really good place to start to learn, because what you're able to do is target someone at the point where they're clearly showing a strong intent to take up your kind of offering. But on the other hand, you might have a business that is perhaps, say, an e-commerce store, or a retail outlet. And yeah, you could probably target people who are searching for that product or service, but equally you may be able to do some nice demographic type targeting, so you've got a really good, strong customer profile. You know the kinds of things that are appealing to them, and you might be able to leverage a platform like Facebook that you could probably get cheaper costs per click, reach more people, and that might be more suitable. So I think it's really a case of trying not to do everything at once, picking a few key areas that really align. Like if you're business to business, for example, you want to be on LinkedIn because that's where a much more professional audience is.
Social media is incredibly interesting. Like it's something that came around when I was sort of in my high school years, sort of that early 2000s, and certainly for you, you've always had it essentially, really, haven't you? You're a couple of years younger.
Yeah,
so
it's huge fundamentals these days.
Yeah.
It'll be silly to avoid the information in the business that you can get from it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think
very important to one business.
I mean, I've not been able to qualify the actual stat, but someone told me that the biggest source of news for Kiwis getting the news is Facebook.
Yeah, and that would not surprise me in the slightest. If I look at my own news consumption habits, I'll generally jump on the Stuff Facebook page instead of the Stuff website, because I'm probably already on Facebook doing something. And so I think pretty much for any business of any shape or size, there's a role to play. Social media has a role to play, but also other elements of digital marketing should not be overlooked as well. Things like email marketing, for example, can you build up a nice database? That's something that you own and control. Because there's an element of risk with, say, you could build a big Facebook following and then you might break Facebook's terms of service and they could block your page like that overnight. With the last election in the United States, if you cast your mind back a few years, there was a whole lot of scandal because a couple of pages that had really big followings got shut down overnight and they couldn't get their audience back. Now, if they had used that Facebook audience they built, that social media audience, leverage that to, say, build a nice email list, that's something you can pick up and take with you pretty much anywhere. So even if you lost your Facebook page, for example, you can say, hey, look, we've been shut down, but you can find us on this website, or we've moved to this platform. So it's about, I guess not putting all your eggs in one basket. It's about leveraging an audience on one location to build one in another place as well. Just strengthening, and diversifying what you're doing.
So what's your one piece of advice for a business owner that is either using it or thinking about using it?
Digital marketing in general, I think the biggest piece of advice I can give is to really think about what platforms and strategies make sense for your business. If you try to do it all with limited resource, both financial and sort of time-wise, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're not really going to make that much progress. So pick, 1, 2, 3 things, probably 2 to 3, and do them really well. So if your business lends itself, for example, to that question and answer approach, and you're comfortable answering questions, writing content, it might be that, you want to jump in front of a camera, record a video, put it on YouTube, distribute it across Facebook and other social media channels, LinkedIn, put the content up on your website, and then you might do another thing like remarket to people who visit your site but don't inquire. But don't try and do everything, because that will ultimately cause you, I think, to fail or at least struggle. And as you grow and expand, the great thing about digital is it's so scalable. So if you start to see success, if you start to grow, there's nothing stopping you.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, mate.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, cheers. Yeah.